And again, welcome everyone to My Jewish Learning. We're so happy you could join us today. So let's get started for our tour of the Vatican from a Jewish lens. I'm so excited to welcome Andrea Stoler, our tour guide for today. Andrea is an American living in Rome, Italy. She has been there for some time now. I think she'll tell us exactly how long, but Andrea was raised in upstate New York and is a graduate of Northwestern University in Chicago. But after becoming a college professor, she relocated to Rome and has been there ever since. Once she was there, she started studying Italian, and in time discovered she loved it so much that she had a passion to share it with everyone else. So became a tour guide and now does some Zoom tours as well, though I hear it is quite busy in Rome right now with travelers. So Andrea, thank you so much for being with us today, and I will turn it over to you now.
Thank you. Right. Hi, my name is Andrea, and I'm really excited and a little bit nervous to be here today. And what I'm going to do today is the Sistine Chapel from a Jewish point of view. And actually the main theme, and I'll explain it as I do it, is everybody knows about the Sistine Chapel ceiling, and it's fantastic by Michelangelo, Buonarroti, etc. But I'm going to try to convince you today that the whole ceiling, everything, the whole kit and caboodle is from a Jewish point of view, and he did it on purpose. There's not one Christian symbol on it, and it's 100% Jewish in the Pope's private chapel. But let's start with a little bit of background. I have a little bit of video going, and it's my PowerPoint presentation, and I'm going to get it started, and we'll see some of it as people are coming on. So I'm going to share my screen now, screen share, and that's me. And I am going to start. So if we get this going, and can everybody see it, I hope? Okay. So it's a tour of the Sistine Chapel from a Jewish point of view, and I'm an independent tour guide, and I have a website and my little business called Roaming Rome with Andrea. And there will be a lot of information, and but there's no test at the end. And I hope you have fun and you really enjoy it. And as our host Julie said, questions are allowed. Please type them into the chat. Okay, so let's start. So it's in the country of the Vatican, and I don't know how many people know about it. So here we go. I'm still working out my screen over here. There we go. I think I'm going to do it like this. Let me get a little bit of technical stuff going here. It's 10 acre. Oh my goodness. It's 110 square acres, or 44 hectares. There we go. That. It's surrounded by a 3-mile wall, or 5 kilometers. It's 60% of it is garden, as you can see from this shot. And it was really important at a particular moment in time. There's flowers, there's lemon and orange trees, and especially when it was first started, medicinal plants, which were really important. And the Pope did not leave this area until 1929, when the state of the city of the Vatican, or Stato di Città del Vaticano, became a country. Okay, but I don't know if you can see, we're going to talk about what happened before the independence of Italy. And most people are very unaware that this is kind of what Italy looked like. It was a series of nation states. And this is from the 1500s. Italy officially became a country in 1870 when the Pope lost Rome. And so this is indeed the sign of the Vatican, and it's also the sign of the Pope. We have two keys which represent the keys of heaven given. So Jesus said to Peter, "You are my rock upon which I build my church, and I give you the keys to the kingdom of heaven." Peter is regarded as the first pope, so regarded as a successor of Peter, who's considered the first pope. The gold represents a spiritual or heavenly power, and the silver represents the earthly plane. And this is called the papal tiara, that is actually worn by the Pope and has been worn or was worn until John the 23rd in 1962. And it was used to establish the emblem of Vatican City when it became a separate country under the Pact of Mussolini in 1929. And as a country, I mean, it's really a country. And so let's see, I mean, it has its own post office, so you can see with the stamp. It has its own coins. And most people don't realize, like US quarters, the euros, all the coinage is the same, but the back of the coins actually have independent countries. So you can see this is what Spain, obviously this is the Vatican, this is Italy, and Germany, and Ireland, and Malta. It issues passports for, it's now 648 people. It has its own license plate, which is Stato di Tito del Vaticano. It operates media. Radio Vatican is one of the most important ones. It has its own military, and the Swiss Guards are the private army of the Pope. Around 800, it fluctuates, it depends. And every citizen who resides in the city is Roman Catholic, and they contribute to the operation of the country. And there are over about 2,400 people who actually work at the Vatican. They come in and out there. Okay. So the question is, as I turn this up, why is this area important? And it's not because the Pope lives here. That's a later thing. What makes it important is St. Peter is buried underneath the basilica. And so it was considered holy ground. And that's why it was important during the time of ancient Roman times. And a long story, very short, under the Great Fire of Nero, he was crucified and there in that area and then buried very quickly. And today we see this. This is what you think of, but it's not actually what happened. This is the first St. Peter's Basilica. It was built by Constantine in 313, Common Era, as you would say. And the idea is the fact that he legalized Christianity and made it okay for the Christians to openly pray. Otherwise, they were getting slaughtered and killed. And interestingly, this is it after 1,200 years. So this guy is actually kind of new. And as I would say, it's directly related to the Michelangelo story. So what are we looking at today? We're going to be talking a lot about the Sistine Chapel, which is the private chapel of the Pope. You know, this is St. Peter's Basilica, and this is the famous balcony. There you go. This is the famous balcony that the Pope would come out after he's been elected and celebrate holidays. This is the famous St. Peter's Square that gets filled up. And here's the Papal Palace. And what you know about the Papal Palace and when people come up, I gotta make this go away again, is the famous window where the Pope waves to everybody on Sunday and says, "Hi, I'm here. Everything is great." Okay. So, but interestingly, this is the Sistine Chapel, but it is a part of the Vatican Museum. It's at the very end of the Vatican Museum. And this old summer palace plus all of this actually constitute a very, very large place known as the Vatican Museum. And most people come to actually see the Sistine Chapel. And here it is. Here's the Sistine Chapel. So I just keep, okay. The Sistine Chapel is named after the guy who built it, which is Sistine IV. It is the private chapel of the Pope. It's not the public church. It is where you get, in its most famous function, is the election of a new Pope. And so what happens is the College of Cardinals come in, as you see, 2/3 majority. And so what happens is they take the ballots, after they count them, they burn them, and the way the world knows is smoke. And you can see it from St. Peter's Square. If there's black smoke, there is no new Pope. And if there's white smoke, as I keep turning this off, there's white Pope, there's white smoke, a new Pope has been elected, and then ring the bells, etc. Okay? And it was started between 1475 and 1480, and it was finished being decorated in 1483. But here we go. What is actually the Sistine Chapel? The Sistine Chapel was actually designed, and as most other tour guides would say, to be the Holy Temple of Solomon. And actually, it was designed to be that way. It's long and rectangular. It is exactly the way it was designed. And the actual footage and the way it's designed and the measurements are exactly that. Okay? And the question is, why? And the answer is, I don't think most people realize that right before the popes moved to this area in the mid-1400s, that the papacy was actually in France for almost 100 years. And they had just recently returned, and so the power was here. And if I make this go away again, so for them, for the Pope, this was the new Jerusalem. This was where the power was. And I'm not going to get into the difference between Judaism and Christianity, and they thought what they were the new chosen people. That's for another day. So I keep turning off people waiting to get in. Okay, and this is the Sistine Chapel. Wait a minute. This has got a blue ceiling. Yeah. Michelangelo was only 5 years old when it was completed. This is the original Sistine Chapel, everybody. And as you can see from the picture below, it has art on the walls. Yeah, it certainly does. And if you can see, and I don't know if I can move it, maybe I can, there, it is the Hechel with the Kadosh Kodashim. They really built it that way. And the Kadosh, and it has the menorot, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. This is the original design of the Sistine Chapel with artwork. And here it is today. Just we might think of a blue ceiling. Okay. So the original, the first 30 popes, right? Some tapestries on the wall. And the life of Moses and the life of Jesus. And they parallel each other to show that you have Moses, but then there's Jesus, and there's Moses, but then there's Jesus. I'm just going to focus on the Moses story for now. And they're done by 8 different artists, which Botticelli and Signorelli and Perugino, Giordano, Rosselli. So let's start with that. Okay, here we go. So you have Moses, the story of Moses. And this is by Perugino. And I'd like to note they're kind of okay. I mean, in the story of Moses, you have Moses meets the angel and the circumcision of his second son. I don't know if I can actually get some, he bids farewell to his father-in-law. See if I can go back. I don't know. And in this one, because this thing is in the way, but I can't move it. Oh, yes, I can. Oh, how cool is that? Okay, let's see what I can do here. Okay, and you can see here that here he's killing the Egyptian, and then he is going after the shepherd who stops the daughters of Joshua from getting water, and then he's going up to Mount Hermon and taking off his shoes. And that's the burning bush with an image of Hashem, if you like to use that, if you're Orthodox, which is definitely not a Jewish thing to do. And then you see him crossing the Red Sea and the column of smoke. That looks like a real column. And you can see they do have Miriam there. Okay, that's fine. And the Egyptians dying that look like Renaissance people. Okay, that's fine. And then you have handing over of the tablets where you see the golden calf, and Moses gets really mad and smashes them down and then goes up, and then he gives them to the people. And that's, you can see the names of the artists on there as I turn this off. Okay. And then you have the punishment of Korach, Datan, and Aram. And that's because they're not following Moses. They're going back to the golden calf. And so Hashem gets mad and opens up the earth and swallows them inside. And what's this? This is the Arch of Constantine to say, oh, this is bad. You know, you're not listening. And it has to do with Christianity. Okay. And then you have the testament and death of Moshe again. So here he is reading to the people, and he knows he's not going to be going there. And the angel is showing him Canaan, but obviously because of his anger, he isn't allowed. And he's giving the last will and testament and handing over that's very interesting looking. And then to Joshua. And then here, of course, he is laying down and he's in grief because he knows he's going to pass away. And that's the way they do it. I mean, they knew a lot about the stories, but you can see it's a little bit interesting. Okay. And here we go. Once again, I want to remind you that this is the old basilica, and this is the new one. And actually, I mean, after 1,200 years, it needed to be fixed. It was started by the same Pope, Julius II, that Michelangelo does the ceiling for, and the stories are related, and it's actually kind of related to why he does a Jewish ceiling. He asked Michelangelo originally to do a funeral tomb to honor it, to say it's his legacy, and he asked Michelangelo because he's actually known as a sculptor. Everybody probably knows of the Pietà. He was only 23, 24, and he's famous for it, and he was glad to do it. And the answer is, do you think this building was expensive? And the answer is yes. So how is he paying for it? And it's called indulgences. In this day, doing a good deed by giving money that the person is granted full or partial remission of his punishment of sins. And then you could do whatever you would like with the money, because remember, the papal state was a third of the Italian peninsula. So he wasn't just a heavenly king. He was kind of also an earthly king. And as I usually say on my tours to everybody, for 30 seconds, it's about being an individual. Some people are leaders that help people, and some people are leaders that just want more power and money, and we're not going to go there at this particular moment in time, because being American, we can say a lot. Okay. So to make a long story short, he was not given any more money to build. He went away. They decided, and they started this dislike for each other. And because the ground is unstable, cracks appeared in the blue ceiling of the Sistine Chapel, and clearly there are cracks everywhere in the museum ceiling today. And he was called back to fresco the ceiling. Remember, it's a lot of work. It's painting with plaster. And if you make a mistake, it is the law. And remember that the Hekel is 65 feet up in the air. So this is not a great job, really, to do. And he was actually asked to do Jesus and the 12 apostles. And you notice that's not it at all. Okay, he was 30 to 34 between 1508 and 1512, 4.5 years. He went from this to this. Here we go. And today you can't take pictures, but I love this picture because this is the guy cleaning it. Can you imagine Michelangelo going up there all the time? And you'll see some black spots and gray spots. This is a picture Michelangelo drew of himself doing it. He was never on his back, and it wasn't really the best thing to do. And the reason I'm showing this is because they did it exactly the way Michelangelo painted it. Okay, you can't improve on genius. Okay, so here we go. This is a Sistine Chapel ceiling. What you get are prophets and sibyls. You get the family of man. You get the redemptions of the Jews in the four corners. You get the lineage of King David. And you get the story of Genesis. And I like to say, because my background is a bit different from being, I have a background in science. And this relates to the story that adult cells have cellular memory, or a record of how and what influences it as it develops. Remember, so what influenced Michelangelo? He was actually from Florence, a liberal country, in competition with Rome. He studied at the Medici household at around 13 in the San Marco garden. And this is important because that's where the liberal Neoplatonism school of philosophy and academia, when they got an array of philosophers to look at things in a different way. They were studying agorism, which is an assertion that reason and philosophy are superior to faith and knowledge based on faith. And here we go. And he studied with people like Marcello Fenicio and Luciano, and they all studied philosophies, including Torah and Talmud. What? You have to remember that Florence was a fantastic banking place and great merchants. And because of that, they invited a lot of Jews to Florence. And with the School of Philosophy, and they saw what was going on, they invited the Jews to study as well. Besides Christianity, ancient Greek, Judaism, anything they could get their hands on to study, because it was quite liberal and they were open. And he encountered one of the foremost Christian Kabbalists, which is Pico della Mirandola. And he had, and is still documented, one of the biggest Kabbalistic libraries ever assembled. Yeah, you have to realize sometimes as being earthly king, spirituality was a little lacking and these people were looking for it. And they saw it in the Kabbalah. And, oh, you can't even see this. Maybe I can move it. Pico was proficient in Latin and Greek and studied Hebrew and Aramaic with Rabbi Del Madillo and read Aramaic manuscripts with him, and that's what Michelangelo did. So we see this. So the question I always say to people, did Michelangelo actually get along with the Pope? And it's documented that he didn't. And he was pretty upset how he was paying for the church, which is taking indulgences and just paying money and not giving any back to the people. And so he didn't like it at all. And so he argued and argued and argued and argued with a philosopher. And he's the only artist to do whatever he wanted. And yes, the rumors are maybe the first two pieces when he's taking down the blue ceiling, he is getting some help frescoing because he's not a fresco painter. But what he does do is he does it by himself. And in his choice, we have Moses, we have Jesus, and he decided and convinced the philosophers that the ceiling should be the story of Genesis. Okay? Yeah. But I don't know if you realize that the story of Genesis and the Old Testament, our Torah, are slightly different. And so I'm going to start because the version he uses and what he does is complete Torah and honoring of the Jews. Because for him, in his studies, Judaism was the basis in the beginning of Christianity and not something to be superseded like superseason of Jesus by Moses, that they should be embraced together. And he was mad at the Pope. So what is, oh, see if I can go back. I don't know. oh, maybe, let's try this. So what he does is the four corners are the redemption of the Jews. There, I'll put it there so you can see part of it. And actually, these redemptions we know about from Pesach. And one of the reasons we drink 4 glasses of wine is the honor of how it happened. And we have a saying, with an outstretched arm. Oh, look, Judas and Helphin with an outstretched arm. With a mighty hand, with David and Goliath, with great fear, with the story of Esther and Haman, and with signs of wonders, with the story of Moshe. And you can see that you have the snake and him healing the people. And then, of course, we have the sealing, which is the story of Genesis. But actually, it's divided into 3 portions, and the first 3 parshas. You have Breshit, the 2 of them, and the beginning of Noah. And I would like to convince you that all of this is 100% Jewish. It is not the Old Testament, like in Christianity, but it's actually Torah. So here we go. I am doing it, maybe I should go backwards. I can go back, because Michelangelo painted it backwards.
Andrea,
yeah?
sorry to interrupt. Which slide do you mean to be on right now?
I'm looking at the whole ceiling.
No, we're seeing redemption of the Jews and with an outstretched arm. So maybe start the, advance the slides again.
Oh, dear. What happened? Okay. I'm sorry. I'll.
No problem. We will wait for the technology to figure itself out. Maybe if you just restart.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Wow, that was weird. I don't know what happened. So which where are you again?
We were at the slide that said Judith, and
right.
with an outstretched arm at the bottom.
Right. Okay, I'm going to start the slide before, if that's okay.
Great.
Oh, no, we didn't, did we?
Now we're seeing the whole, we were seeing the whole ceiling.
You were, but I wasn't.
Oh.
Huh. Oh, this is kind of interesting for me. Here. What are you seeing?
Now we see the whole ceiling kind of in a vertical rectangular shape.
You see the ceiling?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Great, thank you.
Oh, but I need to go back. Can you see this now? Does it say Genesis, the family, the lineage of King David? Redemption of the...
Yes,
oh.
It does. Thanks for checking.
Okay. Oh, wow. Okay. I hope you followed me. I didn't realize there was a technology problem. Okay. To restart again, just to back up a little bit so that there's not this confusion. Michelangelo paints 12,000 square feet of ceiling, including the walls. If you look here, the side walls is the lineage of King David. And the lineage of King David, he does because Jesus is supposed to be from the lineage of King David to be able to do what he does. The interesting part, for confusion's sake, is he doesn't do it in a linear way. He just puts them all over the place just to do the lineage of King David. Actually makes it boy, girl for a particular reason. And so the side wall, not even the ceiling, he does even the side wall, is the lineage of King David. He does the family of man, okay, which the people, some Christian sources say are supposed to be the Jews in limbo, but they're wearing beautiful clothes, and the centerpiece is a woman, because he knows in Judaism, it's the centerpiece is a woman, because we give it down to our family, and the women are very important. So he puts women in the centerpiece here. You have, you have prophets. Let's see if I can move this. There we go. I have prophets and sibyls that you can see. Prophets, they say, predict the coming of Jesus. Prophets predict the future, and Greek sibyls also predict the future, theoretically predicting the coming of Jesus, but the actual situation is any of the Greek lady sibyls that predict Jesus, and there are 4 of them that they acknowledged, are actually not on the ceiling at all. Actually, these ladies, these sibyls, correspond more to the 4 corners that he does, which is actually the redemption of the Jewish people, and that's even what they write. And why does he do that? Because that's the importance of Hashem helping us. And we say it in a way, and now let's hope this works. With an outstretched arm, which is Judith and Halthorn, when she chops the head off of the Greek general and saves us in that regard. And here you can see, with a mighty hand, and a very interesting, and there's a lot more to this that I'm not saying, with David chopping off the head of Goliath with a mighty hand, with great fear, and the horribleness of this is Esther here, and this is Haman, how fearful it was, because she was asking and became the bride, and you know the story of Purim as well as I do. And so the idea, it was a fearful time, and poor Haman, but no, we were saved by her. And then, of course, the story of Moshe in the desert, and everybody sickened with the golden snake on it. Okay. And now we're going to do the most famous part of the Sistine Chapel ceiling, which is the story of Genesis. And I hope everybody's seeing this. Okay, so what is going on here is he painted it from this side and went down this way. So first he had to destroy the blue ceiling, and he does all of this, and he has to stop for a period of time because the Pope goes to war to get more territory for the papal state. And then he comes back and he wants to finish it, because all of this part was actually finished in a year. So I am going to describe it to you in the way he painted it. Though the story of Genesis goes up, I am going to go down. And I'm going to look at it in detail. And as I said before, that it is from the first 2 horror sections of the book of Genesis. So let's start. It's divided into 3, and that's how I will do it. I don't know if this is somewhere. Okay. And this is a whole, because of an explosion in the 1800s, that the Pope's, everything exploded in the, where his armory was, all the windows came out. Part of the ceiling was taken down in early 1800s and not restored. But let's look at the story that Michelangelo does. Here we go. You have the drunkenness of Noah, where 2 sons are looking away and one Ham is looking at him, precisely. Okay, this is one of the big ones. This is the flood. And I don't know if you know, or popular literature, that where is Noah's Ark? Actually, it's called the Tevach, and it's never been an ark. Everybody thinks it's this thing. No, it's a box. Actually, exactly how it's described in the Torah. You have the sacrifice of Isaac with the one God, which is so very Jewish. And I'm not going to go into why, because I've talked to rabbis, but he's doing it maybe with a shechita. Well, I mean, is it there at the time of Noah? We're not going there. But, I mean, obviously he knows something because he's doing it in a kosher way. That's interesting. And then you have the expulsion from the Garden of Eden with the beauty. Wait a minute. So where's the apple? Excuse me, that's really Christian. That's not what's in Torah. In Torah, they say it's a fruit. Definitely not an apple. That's a bad translation of Latin, from male to mela, which is from bad to apple. In the Torah, it says the snake has legs that are wrapped around a tree. And according to the Torah, she's not picking it and giving it to man. She said, God said to stay away from the tree of knowledge, and the snake came after her and don't touch it and bumped into the tree and nothing happened. So she wasn't hesitant to offer man the fruit, which from a Kabbalist point of view is actually a fig. My God, that's a fig tree. It's not an apple tree. Every rendition ever, except this one, is an apple. See, God never presents us with a problem unless he has already created it, a solution in the problem himself. And that's a very Kabbalistic ideology. And so they're fig leaves. So when they leave, they could cover their nudity. There's not one apple. And nobody, and I mean nobody, ever notices that. Woman is created from the side of man, not from the rib. And here you have the very famous God creates man. And in Torah, it's in the plural, so it's God and the angels. My goodness gracious. There's a lot I could say about the art from sticking with the Jewish aspect. But I will say this guy illegally studied human anatomy. Because if you look very carefully, that's actually a longitudinal cross-section of a human brain that's really accurate. So this is separation of water and earth. This is separation of the sun, the moon, and the planets. And this is separation of light and dark that he does in a single day, painting directly plaster on the wall, not having a diagram like a coloring book. So if he makes a mistake, it's like it's the wall. He does it free-handed, which is like, I guess after 4.5 years, you get good at it. And if you notice, this is actually from an article in Scientific American that he does perfectly, looking up in the voice box. He does the prophets and sibyls. And in the very first prophet he does is Zechariah, which is actually the Pope. Please notice that the Pope is turning the pages of the book. And please notice these two people behind them. They have the sign of the fig, which is like giving somebody the finger. I told you he did not like this guy at all, documented. And if you look at the other prophets, they are reading a book or having looked like they read it, not flipping through the pages. So what does Michelangelo actually think of the Pope's theology? And he puts Jonah and a big fish. Yeah. It's never a whale. It's what you read for Yom Kippur. It's a fish. And Jonah is known to be, go to a place that was corrupt and unwilling, and eventually helps them to be redeemed by giving up their bad ways. Oops. And it's right over the high altar, actually. How interesting. Oh, he doesn't stop there. he does the prophet Jeremiah. And you notice he's looking down. This guy doesn't even have a book. Okay. Well, why? Well, actually, it's a caricature of Michelangelo. He doesn't have a white beard. But what's he looking down over? Where the Pope would be sitting as the prophet Jeremiah. So who is the prophet Jeremiah? He's the doom and gloom of prophets. And what is his prophecy? Yeah, let's see if I can move this. If you don't stop your corrupt ways, you will soon be destroyed. Do you think he's trying to give the Pope a message? Okay, that's the ceiling. Do you see any Christian symbols on there? Do you see anything Christian up there? Huh. See a message that he didn't like the corruption that was going on. But I don't see any Christian symbols. Right. And this message, what's going on? Do you realize that only 5 years after he finishes the ceiling, the Protestant Reformation started by Martin Luther? He was protesting and trying to reform the Roman Catholic Church. His big complaint was this money, these indulgences, thinking that it was wrong. You're not helping people. All you're doing is trying to get yourself rich. Remember, they went around destroying all these churches and getting rid of all the wealth because they think it was terrible. Okay, where'd it go? Okay. He did not like the fact that people could buy indulgences, a way to reduce the amount of punishment one has to go undergo for sin and collecting money and influencing friends and people. Remember, it was the papal state, a third of the Italian peninsula. Here we go. And in 1527, there was the sack of Rome where the Pope was almost killed. And that's how the Swiss Guard, his private army, came into being, because they saved his life. And after that, actually that whole incident was a year. And more than half the population of Rome, because of disease and everything, were killed. And after that, the Pope actually went out of Rome to his castle and went to Viterbo and stayed there for many years not to be killed. And finally, he comes back to Rome. And what happens? Rome is in a bad shape. And so he, being a Medici, asked this genius now to come back. He was saved. And do another drawing. It's called The Last Judgment. Okay? Between 1536 and 1542. And if you don't know what it is, in Christianity, your souls are resurrected and Jesus and Mary judge you. Are you going up to heaven or are you going down to hell? Okay, so let's look at this. You're judged. A little book of good people and a big book of bad people with the colors of Rome. There is no being written in a book in Christianity. I think that's a Jewish concept. Oh no, here he goes again. You're going up to heaven with rosary beads, and you're going down to hell with a money bag and 2 keys that represent St. Peter and the building of it. Oh, I think by the way, Michelangelo lives almost 90 years old. This person, it's what everybody says, is actually the secretary of the Pope that Michelangelo makes this the king of the underworld, because he criticized Michelangelo to actually, everybody was naked, and it was that way until his death. And then his best student painted, you can see, covered up the nudity. Look at the cover up. That wasn't Michelangelo, he refused. Nudity, like a Greek statue, is a sign of purity of spirit and soul. And then he does Jesus in heaven. Okay, yeah, he looks like a bodybuilder, but he's putting a statue there. But then you look at this person and he's pointing. What's he pointing at? These 2 people. What's going on here? Wait a minute. He's pointing to people going, one God, and they're wearing horns and a yellow hat, long wait a minute, those look caricatures and stereotypes, but they're definitely caricatures and stereotypes of Jews and rabbis. Wait, hold a minute. Michelangelo, next to Jesus, is pointing out two Jews in heaven, and we haven't been baptized, and we're not supposed to be there. Yeah, maybe having everybody naked, nobody kind of noticed. Because if his people got noticed, he would have been excommunicated, removed from Christianity. That is one of the most amazing revolutionary concepts, that all good people should be in heaven. That was not, and especially Jews, since he liked them, they were there. And who's this other guy? God welcomes the righteous of the nations of the world into his heavenly palace. And I've got to stop soon. That's Pico della Mirandola, the guy that helps him with Kabbalah and aspects of Judaism, and some of the, if he wants some more detailed information. And to finally conclude on my long thing, in Napoleonic background, Michelangelo believed that his Catholicism complemented Judaism, rather than denying or replacing the older faith. That's by Roy Dollinger. And only when we understand that we are all children of the same God, to whom each one of us must give the name best suited to his own sensitivity and traditions, will peace reign in the world. And that is what one of the critics said, they believed what it was, and it's a message from Michelangelo. A lot of this is due to the Sistine Chapel Seal, the Sistine Secrets by Rabbi Benjamin Black and Roy Dollinger. And my name is Andrea, and I can put it in the chat that I have a little organization. I have a little company trying to be independent, roaming around with Andrea. I have a website, and that's how you can contact me. And I'm sure, I hope I gave you some time for questions. I heard I went so long. And thank you for listening. I guess it was a little bit of technical problems that made it run over. I'm going to stop my screen share, and I hope you enjoyed it.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Andrea. On behalf of both My Jewish Learning and JTA, Jewish Telegraph Agency, I want to thank you for this very interesting presentation. I'm sure a lot of us hadn't heard this before, this angle, so to speak, this angle of the ceiling. And we do have some time for questions. I just opened the chat box up so that you can send messages to everyone. So if you have a question, you can put it in the chat box now. A couple of questions did come in, so I'll start with that. I'll start with a couple of those. Why do you think that all the subsequent popes have allowed the Sistine Chapel to stand? Is it, well, you can speak to that.
Yeah, I was told that you saw the flying bridge he constructed. Yeah, he was an engineer. Nobody could figure out how to get back up there. They couldn't, I mean, even when they cleaned it, they had to look for the holes he used to make it. So to get back up there, remember, 5 feet in the air, it was hard for anybody to get back up there to fix it. And it has, I didn't go into that aspect of it. It has to do with the innovation in art. You see, people twisting and moving in three-dimensional was never seen before in art. So Julius II hated him and whatever, but he had the best piece of art in the Western world. And everybody changed how they painted. It was the most innovative, newest technology ever. I mean, it's almost like the invention of the internet. It was like, oh my, and I mean, every single person in Europe changed. And so, I mean, you know, and everybody was, a lot of people were nude and all this other stuff. And in magic, it's called misdirection. You're not paying attention to the details, which is how magic works. You know, if you don't direct your attention, they can do other things. It's what he did. He directed people's attention to other things. So these little things, I mean, and God creates man and the beautiful Eve and the ugly Eve. In the beautiful Eve, he makes these gorgeous lips that are plush and little lines, and the ugly Eve, they're dried out and stuff. I mean, he's not doing this for anybody but himself. Does that answer the question?
I think so.
I
Can
talk a
you
lot. I have to shut up.
can you just repeat the name of the book? Someone was asking.
It's called The Sistine Secrets by Roy Dolliner and Rabbi Benjamin Bluck.
Thank you.
That to everybody. That'll put. And I mean, because I studied with Roy, and I can spell his name easier.
Thank you.
I can put does anybody, I guess I'll put my stuff in the chat too if you're interested. I don't know.
Absolutely. If and people can follow up with you if they would like to
Yeah.
come to Rome, right? In person as
Yeah,
well.
sure. That's me. And yeah, any other questions? I talk a lot. I'm so sorry.
No, this is great. What one person put in the chat, given the overwhelming evidence, why do you think the Jewishness of the Sistine Chapel is not accepted more widely?
Well, it just came out in the last few years, and now, you know, it's still the home of the Pope, so Christianity is still okay. They're accepting more that it's the Torah, and he did it the original way.
Speaking of, do you have a sense of what the other communities' responses, meaning not Jewish communities, either the...
Well, some people don't like it. I mean, it's about, at the time it was about successionism. I don't want to go too much into it, but that Judaism was the start and Christianity, they're the new chosen people. But that kind of concept, especially with John Paul II and John the 23rd, that they're our brethren and that we started and that we're together, that concept has gone away. And so they're trying to build more bridges than that. So they just acknowledge, oh, good, he did the original version of the original version of Genesis, and that was cool and good, and that was nice, and that's it.
And a question just came in, it's a little specific. It's about the use of the finger in God transferring life into Adam. In the Torah, God breathes life into Adam. So any idea why there's use of the finger?
No, I actually don't. That's an excellent point. I think it was just easier to paint that way. More like breathing, it's a transference. So if you're breathing from mine to you, it's a transference of it. And so you can't touch him. So, and to do it the way he wanted to, that wouldn't work because he also knew that it was God and the angels that did it. And yeah, and so I don't think so. A cross-section of the human brain today, okay, just really quickly, that's a Kabbalistic concept that is the top of it's Sirot. But please understand that brain and intelligence and wisdom, that's Kabbalistic. And that time, the brain and wisdom came from your heart, not from your head. So that's a really Kabbalistic concept. So I think he wanted to do that. And then he did what he could do. I mean, if you look at the twisting snake, that's like a little bit like a Greek ideology. But I mean, he knew a lot of stuff and he's a painter. So, I mean, he did do God. I mean, if he was really Jewish, he wouldn't do any images. But he, you know.
Interesting. Very fascinating. Thank you so much, Andrea, for this tour. Again, on behalf of My Jewish Learning and
Electricity of life. Somebody says that's good. I like to see the spark of life.
Spark. Yes, I saw that comment as well.
I think it's brilliant.
And we will send you all the recording. I know some of you came in late and you wanted to watch the beginning. So watch out for the recording. We'll be sending that link once it's uploaded to your emails. And we hope that you will be able to join us for our next tour. We have a live walking tour in Lima, Peru. That will be on Thursday, November 17th. And I will put the registration in the chat box. You'll also receive that over email in case you want to go right to it right now.
Yep.
And we hope to see you there. And I wish everyone a good rest of your day. Thanks again so
Thank you
much.
so much.
Bye.
Bye. Bye-bye.